Hello, book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nakat's Bookish Cafe, and welcome to the start of March's reading vlog. Alright guys, another month, another reading vlog. It is March 2nd, so I'm here to start the themed vlog that I'm doing for the month. This year I'm aiming to do one vlog a month, and so far we're doing well, as in I've done it for 2 months. This month's theme is going to be kind of a are they going to be a new all-time favorite author, or were they a one-hit wonder? In other words, I'm going to be reading some books by authors that I have given 5 stars, but those authors I've only read one book by, like one singular book. I didn't read a series, I didn't read a full-length novel and a novella. Literally one book. That is all I've read from them, and I am here to see if I enjoy their other work. As usual, I do 3 books for my vlogs, and I am focusing on books from my physical TBR this month. Last month they were all from the library, and my overflowing TBR shelves are like, please focus on this month. So I have 3 books, 3 authors that I am really excited to read. I had a stack of books that I could have used for this vlog, and I chose the 3 that I was able to get onto my monthly TBR. What was interesting was that I noticed that I had an author that I had tried for the first time in 2024. I had an author that I tried for the first time last year in 2025, and I have an author that I tried for the first time this year in January of 2026. So we definitely have a bit of a variety of when I read these authors. Fingers crossed I still enjoy them all, even the ones that I haven't read for over a year. I know my reading taste has been fluctuating a lot, but I have a good feeling about all of these. That being said, let's go ahead and go through the books that you are going to be able to see in this vlog. So here are the 3 books. I think I'm going to read them in the order of, how do I say this? I read their book the longest time ago. So in other words, the author that I tried in 2024 to the newest author. So we're going to read the author that I checked out in 2024, then 2025, and then 2026. And the author that I read in 2024 is going to be Jonny Garza Villa. And the book I will be reading for them is Futbolista. I read Onder and Santi Were Here by this author, which is another young adult Achillean romance, and I really enjoyed that story. I absolutely loved the characters. I loved how relevant the story was with its focus on immigration and how it feels to be a person of color, both someone who is legally here and someone who is illegally here and who is facing the threat of ICE, which is something that a lot of people in the country of America are unfortunately facing. So I really enjoyed the way that the author handled those themes. I thought that the relationship between the characters in that first book was very mature for 2 people that I think were probably about 18, 19 years old. So it felt like a coming of age story because we very much were following 2 people who were in a very transitional part of their life because they were kind of going from being teenagers to being adults who need to figure out what they want to do with their future moving forward. In this book, we are following 2 young men in college, one of them being Gabriel, and he is on the football team, as in soccer, not American football, and he is really good at the sport. He's planning on going pro someday. However, his academics are not doing that great, and so he ends up getting tutoring from Vale, I believe is how it's pronounced, because it's Vale. So I'm gonna say it's Vale. Vale is someone that he actually kissed at a party. I believe Vale was in some sort of awkward situation, and Gabriel kind of stepped in to get that person to back off, you know, to let them know that Vale is not up for grabs or something along those lines. And the kiss wasn't really supposed to mean anything. However, as the two of them are spending more time together, Gabriel is really starting to question his sexuality, because he always assumed that he was straight. But the more time he spends with Vale, I believe I'm gonna probably end up calling him Val on accident a lot. I think I've already started to do it. The more time he spends with Vale, the more he starts to wonder if maybe he isn't so straight. And obviously it's going to be a bit of a relationship between the two of them. So this is going to be the first book that I'm going to start. I am super excited. I'm going to quickly let you know what the other two books are. The author that I tried in 2025 is going to be Lark Taylor, and her book Patience ended up being one of my top books of the year. Patience is the first book in a companion series to this book, which is called Devil's Mark. And this essentially is the series that came before that other series. So we're jumping back in time with this book. I really loved Lark Taylor's writing. I absolutely adored her characters. I felt like they had a very healthy relationship, which is unfortunately not something you see in every romance. I feel like especially in adult romances. I feel like in young adult romances, they're a little bit better at depicting healthy relationships, because they're trying to let younger people know what they should be looking for. But with adults, I don't know. I guess they assume we already know what it looks like, so they're more willing to throw in some toxic red flags or something. But I absolutely adored the relationship in Patience, adored the writing. It had a good found family aspect. I really enjoyed the world building, and I'm really excited to get some more of that in this series. And I will go ahead and let you know a little bit more about the plot of this when I pick it up next. And the final book is going to be by Alexis Henderson, and I'm going to be trying out House of Hunger by her. I read Year of the Witching in January and gave it 5 stars. It was my best book of January. In fact, my mom is reading it right now. I haven't asked her how she's enjoying it, but she's getting through it pretty quickly for someone who only reads a few pages before she falls asleep at night. So I take that as a pretty good sign. I, once again, really enjoyed Alexis's writing. I thought it was so beautiful, so haunting. So I'm looking forward to getting into another kind of gothic story here with her. We have another young woman who's definitely in a more vulnerable position, kind of like her character from the Year of the Witching. And she was really able to write a strong, confident, good-hearted young female character in the Year of the Witching. So I'm hoping we get some more of that in this book as well. So I really loved the vibes of her other story. I think she was really able to get those eerie vibes across very well, and I have a feeling she'll be able to do it again with this one. And once again, I will let you know more about the synopsis when I officially started, but I just kind of wanted to let you know some things that I really liked about the previous books that I read by these authors, and hopefully I see those in these books as well. But like I said, this is going to be the first book I'm going to jump in. I'm actually about to leave the house for just a moment because I need to go ahead and run to the library, drop off some books, pick up some books, and also print off some graphics, because I'm going to go ahead and fill out my journal page for my February reading. So usually I wait until about the first 50 pages before I check in with my initial thoughts, and that's probably what I'll go ahead and do with this one. So I'll probably check in with you sometime tomorrow.
pieces in my room. Are you coming over? That's cool. I could use a little something to do. We could go outside, take a little ride if you want to. That's cool. I did what I was supposed to. There's nothing left for me to do. So now I'm poking out my head through open windows. Cause that's what I feel like. Do it tonight. Waking up my brain. Maybe you can do the same thing. You want me to say something? I come up with nothing. Maybe we can talk until we figure out a topic. Been so long in my head, caught up in my feelings. I've been waiting for something new to happen. And when it happens, I'll be dancing on the lawn when it happens. When it happens, I'll be dancing on the lawn when it happens. You want me to say something? I come up with nothing. Maybe we can talk until we figure out a topic. Been so long in my head, caught up in my feelings. I've been waiting for something new to happen. You want me to say something? I come up with nothing. Maybe we should talk until we figure out a topic. Been so long without it, caught up in my feelings. I've been waiting for something new to happen. And when it happens, we'll be dancing on the lawn when it happens. When it happens, we'll be dancing on the lawn when it happens. When it happens, we'll be dancing on the lawn when it happens. I can't get enough. No, I can't get enough. I'm falling in love. You're all I'm thinking of. Taking my time, messing my life, swear I don't mind. Say that you'll stay holding me close, swear it's alright. Baby, I feel the rush. Everything that you touch turns to gold. I know. Baby, I'm missing you. Everything that you do makes me love you. Oh. Tell me everything. You know I'm listening. Hours pass us by. Yeah, we could talk all night. Taking my time, messing my life, swear I don't mind. Say that you'll stay holding me close, swear it's alright. Baby, I feel the rush. Everything that you touch turns to gold. I know. Baby, I'm missing you. Everything that you do makes me love you. Babe, I feel the rush. Everything you.
Hello, I am not here for a book update because I am less than 30 pages through my book. And it's the end of the day, at end of the work day, so it's 4 o'clock, and I'm about to go to the gym. But before I get ready for that and go, I wanted to share some prints that showed up for me. I ordered some prints. Let me see. It doesn't come with a card from the artist, but I will go ahead and have their Instagram linked down below in case you want to check them out. They work a lot with C.G. Drews, who is the author of Don't Let the Forest In, and Hazelthorn. Are they the ones who created the covers? You know, I'm not 100% sure, but this is the cover of Don't Let the Forest In, and this is the cover of Hazelthorn, so you kind of see the vibe that these two books are. I'll give you guys a nice little close-up of my double chin there, but I did buy 3 prints. 2 of them are from Hazelthorn, and 1 of them is from Don't Let the Forest In. I technically did like Don't Let the Forest In more than Hazelthorn, but art print wise, I like the ones from Hazelthorn just a smidge more. So the first one is going to be this stunning piece of Evander and Lori. Is that their names? I want to say. Look at Evander's hair. Like, it's so gorgeous. It's so long. Absolutely love it. This print comes in 2 different versions. There's this version, and then there's a version where Evander is almost like biting Lori, and so it's a little bit of a bloodier version. I went with the softer version just because I thought it was really sweet, so very happy with that one. Another one with Evander and Lori. These are kind of dark, so I hope they're showing up okay, but you can kind of see like the way that the plants and everything are growing out of him. This is Evander. It's just, they made him so beautiful. Like, he's literally stunning. I can't get over it. And just like the lighting in this one is so amazing. And then we have Andrew and Thomas from Don't Let the Forest In. So here they are kind of entwined with each other and the forest, and it's just stunning. Look at them. So those are the prints that I got. I'm kind of hoping to put 2 of them, like one over each, and it would be this one as well as this one. So those are the 2 that I'm kind of hoping to put over there if they're not too big, because they are relatively big, but we'll see. And then I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put this one yet, but we're going to figure it out. We are going to figure it out. These are definitely going to be on display, but I just wanted to share those and shout out the artist because I'm super happy with them. Like I said, I will have their Instagram handle down in the description if you want to check them out. They have other prints and are obviously a very talented artist. All right, guys, hopefully you can hear me over the sound of the birds because they are hooting and hollering. Let me say, they are talkative today, but it is pretty nice temperature wise. It's definitely cool, but there's not like a lot of wind or anything, so it's pretty nice. Very overcast. That one sunny day we had was just like so spectacular, but I swear when it comes to Washington weather, once we start creeping towards spring, the weather likes to be such a tease. But that being said, I'm off of work for the day, and I just wanted to go ahead and give you my first update for Footballista because I have passed the 50-page mark. Finally, I am just not reading a lot right now, and I feel like my mind is struggling to concentrate on single topics or single tasks for like more than 30 minutes at a time. I am starting my period right now, so I am feeling a little bit under the weather and everything, so that might be contributing to it. but reading has been a little bit of a struggle. Everything has been a little bit of a struggle, but I am 50 pages into this, and unfortunately, I'm not really loving it right now. So far, we have been introduced to Gabriel, who I think is going to be our single POV. I know Andre and Santi was only one POV, so I'm assuming that's going to be the case with this book. And essentially, he is at college, he's a freshman, and I believe the soccer season seems to have kind of started like before the school session actually started. So at the start of this book, they were actually playing their third game of the season, but we were also then the following day watching him attend classes for the first time. And he is his team's goalie, and despite being a freshman, he is just so good that he is essentially like their number one player for goalkeeper position. I don't really know how they say that in sports, but like he's the first one out kind of situation. And he's really passionate about soccer. It's like his whole life, and he is hoping to go pro someday. He loves playing it, he has so much fun, and he's really good at it. And he's been training a lot because he's actually a little bit smaller than your average goalkeeper. He's giving Andrew Minyard from the Foxhall Court, he's a little short to be blocking that whole net, but he makes it work. I do appreciate his passion for the game. That being said, our two characters haven't met, and so far this book is giving straight guy who's really into sports and really into girls vibes. Like, he is really interested in this girl that he's met, and they've kind of like hooked up and stuff, and I'm kind of like, well, I didn't pick this up for like a heterosexual sports romance, and that's like the vibes that it's giving right now. So the story isn't anything I'm interested in at this point, because I'm interested in like the coming of age, queer awakening aspect of the story, the queer relationship and everything, and not so much the soccer. Like, I knew that there would be a lot of soccer in here and everything, but considering that's kind of all we're getting, and then on top of that, a straight relationship, I'm kind of like, okay. So right now it's not really giving me what I wanted going into this. I know that obviously that's going to change and everything, but it's just making it a little bit difficult for me to pick up the book because it's like not what I want to be reading right now. So hopefully in the next chapter or so, because essentially I know in the synopsis it says Vale, the same guy who Gabi, in a moment of history repeating itself, might have kissed very briefly and only just once, just to help him out at a party. And I know for a fact that the last chapter ended at Friday night's football practice, meaning that probably the next chapter is going to be at that party. So I'm hoping that our characters meet at that party, have that kiss for whatever reason, and then start interacting with each other as Vale starts to tutor him for philosophy. And we did get a scene in the philosophy class, and I get that the author probably did that scene so that we kind of got a background for why our character would need tutoring in that class, despite the fact that he has said on multiple occasions that he is an above average student, so him needing tutoring is a little bit out of the ordinary. And it was a really weird scene, and I don't think I've ever taken a philosophy class now that I think of it, and honestly, I don't really think that scene endeared me to philosophy, and it didn't endear the character to philosophy either, who's just like reluctantly taking this class. But I'm hoping that the author doesn't put too many of those scenes in there, because I didn't really enjoy that little lecture that they got from the philosophy period, because I was like, okay. That is my thoughts right now. Not much to say outside of the fact that I'm not loving it yet, but I'm hoping that'll change here in the next chapter or two. I will say that when it comes to Onder and Santi, it just barely was a 5-star. It was like a 4.5 through the majority of the book, and it wasn't until that really emotional and impactful ending that it jumped up to a 5-star. So I am a little bit nervous that this isn't an author that can easily get 5 stars from me. They might need to like fight for it a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. A bit of a weak start, but we are staying optimistic. Of course, the moment I decide it's time to take off the sheets so that I can wash them, y'all show up, right? How's Mama supposed to make her bed? That's not a good enough explanation. You don't even need to get comfy. Up, he's getting comfy. He's getting comfy. Huh? You know what's up, right? I have no idea how he got up here. You've never been up here before, have you? So high up. A whole new view of the world. Huh? He jumped from there all the way up to there. He didn't use that as a step. You jumped so high, baby. You jumped so high. I know. Mom's room's a mess right now. This lamp, I need to figure out where to go because it's not going to be in this room anymore. I just haven't decided if I want to get rid of it yet. You don't need to try to get into my closet. We're actually going to try and close this here. We're going to close the door. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. No kitty entrance. All right, guys, so I am about to film a video, so I'm all dressed up. I always feel like I might overdress for my videos, like my sit-down videos, but it is literally the only time I put on makeup and do my hair and get dressed throughout the week, so I take advantage of it. But I am 50% through Futbolista. I am on page 196, chapter 19, and I'm very happy to say that I am enjoying this book so much more than I was when I initially checked in with you. After the first 50 pages or so, I was kind of like, what are we doing here? Like, what exactly is the story trying to give me right now? Because right now it is definitely feeling more like a heterosexual sports romance, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for a queer romance, but it has at this point become more of that. This is definitely more of a like coming of age story than a romance, which is kind of what I was expecting. I didn't think it would be too romance heavy because we are kind of having this queer awakening moment, and things like that take time. And I believe it was a little bit after the 100-page mark where Gabi and the girl he was seeing kind of ended things. And I really enjoyed that scene. I think that the way that the author went about doing it was really realistic, and we kind of have this girl who's like, hey Gabriel, I really like you, I really like spending time with you, but I am a freshman in college, so are you. I'm looking to get into a sorority. I'm kind of living away from home for the first time, away from a lot of my friends, and I kind of want to spend college having some new experiences, and I don't want to like get into like a really serious committed relationship right at the beginning, which is completely understandable. College is really kind of the place where you find yourself and you have new experiences, you meet new people. And so for some people, getting into like a really committed relationship isn't what they were looking for. And I think the way she went about telling him, letting him know that she enjoyed their time together, but she doesn't want to lead him on anymore, making him think that maybe this could turn into something long term, but that she still values his friendship and everything. I think that scene was really well done and I really liked it. And so now we have Gabriel. He's kind of single again, and he is spending a lot more time with Val, and the way that he's talking, it's very obvious that he's trying to contextualize their relationship in the terms of friendship, when obviously the feelings that he's starting to develop for Val, whose name I'm always saying wrong, probably, are definitely leaning more romantic. And as he's coming to realize this, he himself isn't too put out about it. He has always been an ally. He has always been someone who's surrounded by queer people, and he's not like upset or disgusted by the fact that he might be attracted to men or anything like that. However, he is definitely concerned because he is within a sport that is not very progressive when it comes to accepting the queer community. He knows that if he comes out as queer and as dating a guy, that this could have negative consequences for his future as a professional football player. And it's definitely upsetting to the reader and to him to know that he may have to kind of decide if he wants to risk losing this future that he's wanted since he was like 5 years old, or if he needs to just repress a part of himself for the rest of his life. And it's definitely sad that we put people in those positions. There was talk of this other player. There's kind of these lists of like college football players to watch out for, who may go pro, and one of them ended up being like at almost the top of this list, like clearly a very skilled football player, but he drops out of the team because he's like, I can't pretend I'm not gay anymore and my team's not going to accept me. And so not only does someone who is clearly very passionate and skilled at football lose the opportunity to play and potentially even lose his scholarship. I'm assuming if he's a college football player, he's probably getting like college football scholarships for that. But also the team is willing to lose having one of the top players in the country on their team as long as they don't have like an openly queer person. Like, their priorities are a little bit off, just like this much off. And so it can definitely be frustrating. And as Gabriel is thinking more and more about his attraction to Vale and his desire to be more than friends, these conversations and thoughts are coming up and becoming a bigger part of the story. There are a lot of people on his team, especially the freshmen that came in with him that he's living in, where it's very clear that they are very open to the queer community. There is a non-binary character who is on the women's sports team, and it's very clear that they aren't bothered by queerness. Like at the very beginning, Gabriel had a shutout. Like no one has scored a single point against him, and his friend was like, hey, I want to set you up with someone. Like, what's your sexuality? I want to know, like, guys, girls, like, who are you into? Like, it's very clear that they're like, hey, whatever you're into, like, you got skills, I can set you up with anyone, just let me know. But the upperclassmen have made it very clear that they would not be very happy to have a queer person on their team. And obviously, as a freshman, he does not have the like social power. There's definitely like a power dynamic where he is in a weaker position, where he can't just be like, well, I'm queer and you just have to deal with it. Like there are people, like potentially the coach, the captain, things like that, that could ruin his chances of playing football if they decide they don't want a queer person on their team. He also talks a lot about the fact that a lot of people in his father's generation don't respond well to having queer children, and he's uncertain about how his parents would respond to this and how he wishes things were different. So there's a lot of those important conversations going on in his head that probably go through a lot of people's heads as they are starting to realize they're queer and how this could impact their life moving forward. And I'm really enjoying those conversations. On top of that, every time him and Val are together, I just love the two of them. They are so sweet. Gabriel from the very beginning is a very sweet, loving guy. It's very clear that he is looking for a deep, meaningful relationship, and that's why things with the girl just didn't work out, because she's, you know, looking for something a little looser, a little more fun, relaxed, and he's someone who really gives his whole heart to things. And I think he's just such a wonderful character. I really enjoy following him and watching him create this relationship with Vale and starting to realize like he's checking off all the boxes of what I want in a romantic partner, more so than in like a friend, has been really interesting. So it's been a really sweet book. There's been a lot of moments that have also made me laugh. So it's also got a good amount of humor in it. So right now, I'm still not sure if it'll be a 5-star like the last book, but like I said, the last book kind of was a 4.5 until the very last chapter, where it kind of like bumped it up to a 5-star because I enjoyed the way that the author wrapped up the story so much. So we will see how this book progresses. I definitely think it's going to be a high 4-star, if not a 4.5 at this point, but we'll see if it can make its way up to a 5-star. But I'm absolutely adoring this book, adoring the character, and I am excited to see if Gabriel here in the second half is going to open up to Vale and let him know that he's interested in a romantic relationship, or if he's gonna continue to hold off on that, because obviously it's not an easy decision for him to make, because there's a good probability that he can't have his cake and eat it too kind of situation. But hopefully he finds a way. I know that one has hope that, you know, like sports teams and stuff would prioritize skill over like sexuality, but unfortunately in this book, and as well as in just like the real world, sports have proven time and time again that they're not really there yet, especially when it comes to, you know, more male dominated sports. So I'll be interested, continuing to enjoy the conversations. I know that Gabriel is really someone who's willing to stand up for himself and for his friends. And I don't think he's going to be a pushover about this. I think he's going to stand up for what's right. And I completely forgot to talk about the psychology class, because he's still in the psychology class. And I think the way that the author is tying in what he's learning through his psychology class and kind of tying it into his queer awakening, and how he's using what he's learning in his psychology class and implementing it into his thought process of, should I come out or shouldn't I? Or how should I respond to this situation? Or what kind of person do I want to be in these specific situations, is being done relatively well. I know during that first class, I was just like, why are we dropping a bunch of psychology knowledge? But now it's flowing a little bit more naturally throughout the story. So that is my update for now. I'm going to go ahead and film my physical TBR video, which is probably going to take a while because I have so many books. But I will go ahead and check in with you once I finish reading this book.
We parked your parents came in the cul-de-sac, leaned back in a leather-clad seat. Pockets in your Prada bag. Suburban summer 17 was a roller coaster ride. A manic pixie dream girl right beside me. And she said she liked me, but I bet it was a right thing lining up at the wrong time. And I think maybe if I'd held on tight, she'd still be sitting by my side. I'll never know, I'll never know. I don't like messing with regrets, but I doubt you'd ever leave my head. What could I have done, could I have said? I'll never know, I'll never know. Sides of the crosstown tracks. Guess it's true sometimes opposites attract, but it never lasts. So maybe it was just the right thing lining up at the wrong time. And I think maybe if I'd held on tight, she'd still be sitting by my side. I'll never know, I'll never know. I don't like messing with regrets, but I doubt you'd ever leave my head. What could I have done, could I have said? I'll never know, I'll never know. Oh, I'll never know, I'll never know. Oh, I'll never know, I'll never know. You made a country club pool feel like Malibu Beach. Sure, your parents had money, but you like to drink cheap. Should've known the first moment you're out of my league, but you said you liked me. Oh, I bet it was a right thing lining up at the wrong time. And I think maybe if I'd held on tight, she'd still be sitting by my side. I'll never know, I'll never know. I don't like messing with regrets, but I doubt you'd ever leave my head. What could I have done, could I have said? I'll never know, I'll never know. Oh, I'll never know, I'll never know. Oh, I'll never know, I'll never know.
All right, everyone, good morning. It is March 11th, and I am here to report that I have finished not just the first book of this vlog, but of the month. It has taken me 10 days, because I finished this last night, to finish my first book of the month, and I'm trying not to stress about it, but I am. What can I say? I wish I could tell you why I've been reading so slow this month. I mean, this book, once I got past the initial like 50, 60 pages or so, really started to get into it and everything, but I think life has just been lifing, you know? You just get like a bunch of little things that take up time, and, you know, it takes away from reading and everything, and that's okay. Life is like that sometimes. But that being said, I wanted to go ahead and check in with you this morning to let you know that I have finished the first book of this vlog. And before we even get into my review, let's talk about Vale's name. Because this morning I was like, hey, I should probably look up how to pronounce it. Is it Val? Is it Valet? Is it Vale? It's ballet. Ballet? Apparently the V makes a B noise. So his name is like Ballet. So yeah, Ballet is his name. And I apologize for anyone who knew from the beginning that I was saying that name so wrong. Like, I had a feeling I was saying it wrong, but I did not know that the letter V makes a B noise in Spanish. So I apologize if that was really annoying during the first two reviews. Hopefully I'm saying it more correctly now. Ballet. I'm kind of trying not to say ballet, like the dance. Ballet. I also used to play tennis at a club called the Ballet. So like I have all these similar words. Ballet. Okay, that name is better than Veil though, because I was like, Veil is such a weird name, like Beyond the Veil. Ballet. Okay, so that being said, I really came to love this story. I really did. I came to love these characters. I know in my second review, I was already talking about how I was enjoying it so much more and how much I was loving Gabriel as a character and everything, and him and Ballet, the way that they are just such a addictive couple. Like I enjoyed every moment that the two of them were together. They were so sweet, so wholesome. I will say this is definitely a new adult novel. Like I did not expect it to get as spicy as it did. I mean, I was kind of going in between, like this could be young adult, this could be new adult, because they are freshmen in college, so you know they're not like high schoolers or anything, but our character is still 18 during this book, so I was like it could fall under either category. Based off of the level of spice in here, I would definitely put it in the new adult category. Like I would not put this level of spice in a young adult novel. I know I've been seeing this book going around on the internet that's apparently young adult and is really spicy, and a lot of people are talking like what the heck is going on here. I am in the camp where I think it's okay to talk about like sex and let characters have sex in young adult books, but they definitely do not need to be as explicit as this book is. Not as explicit as an adult, full-blown adult like romance novel, but definitely explicit enough where I would not put it in a young adult category or anything like that. This book just had so many meaningful conversations. It really was a coming of age story where we have this young man who's coming into college and he thinks he knows exactly what his future is going to hold. He knows who he is as a person, and he's throughout this first semester at college, through his relationship with ballet, with football, with his philosophy class, just, you know, the other friends and experiences that he has in that first semester, is really learning that no, he's not a fully developed and set person. He is still someone who is growing and changing and finding himself and fighting to become the person he wants to be and fighting for the life that he wants. You know, nothing is guaranteed. And I just really loved following this character as he made those discoveries. Like I kind of mentioned before, he is definitely someone who fights for what is right. And while he has moments of weakness brought on by fear and uncertainty, in the end, he is someone who's gonna not just stand up for himself, but for the people around him. And I just really liked this journey as he started to kind of realize that while he loved football, there were a lot of aspects about the game that were not loving him back. And I really enjoyed the honesty and openness about like homophobia within the sports world and within the Mexican and Hispanic community, where it talked a lot about how there is still a lot of negativity towards the queer community within Mexican culture. A lot of, like, I think the word they use is like machismo, which is probably like that toxic masculinity kind of thing that we have here in America. And he was talking about how he kind of fits in that intersectionality of a Hispanic person of color who is also queer, and that presents itself with more fears and obstacles that he needs to overcome, that he is part of a culture that is less likely to accept him than other cultures. Not saying that like other cultures are doing much better. We know that homophobia is alive and well in like pretty much every culture, but I did appreciate him addressing that throughout this story because it is is possible to look fondly on your culture, on your people, to love them, to acknowledge that they as a group face oppression, that they as a group here in America are a minority, while also acknowledging that that culture and that those people have flaws that need to be resolved, that there are negative aspects of the culture that needs to be left behind. And seeing him kind of have this fear of, why do I have to be the first one? You know, someone has to break the glass ceiling. Someone needs to be the first young Hispanic bisexual football player, and that person might face a lot of hate and uncertainty, but he's kind of finding the strength to be that person because he wants to be someone that the next generation can look up to, and for them to look up at him and be like, this is proof that I can love the sport, that I can play the sport, and I can also be a queer person. And I know that that was probably a very difficult and scary road for him to take, and I really liked watching him come to the point where he feels confident enough to take that road. There were definitely some really difficult moments to read when he was facing a lot of homophobia or biphobia, specifically from some of the older players on the team. It was definitely giving like old generation versus new generation throughout the story. And while I'm sure in the real world it isn't usually that black and white, I think that it really goes to show that things will still be good if the old ways die. Okay, you know, maybe the older people are not okay with younger queer people being on the team, but the younger queer people are going to be there, and they're still going to play great soccer. You know, the game of football is still going to be just as fun and as exciting as it was before. And it almost gives like these reassuring vibes like, hey, one day the old guard will be relieved of their duty and the new guard will come in and things will be just as good, if not better. So overall, between watching Gabriel kind of find himself as a person, between his and Bali's beautiful, addictive relationship, and all of the commentary around being a queer person in a very masculine dominated sport as well as culture, I think that the story handled all of that incredibly, and I loved the majority of this book. I am going to go ahead and give it 4.5 stars. As you know, I struggled a little bit in the beginning. I think that this book is almost 400 pages. It's, like 390 pages. I think we easily could have cut this down to like 350, 340 pages, really kind of cut down on that beginning of the book a little bit, and this easily could have been a 5-star read. So I absolutely adored this story. It had me like cheesing and smiling and giggling, and of course it had me in my feels quite a bit because I really felt for this character. And at the end of the day, Jonny Garza just created a bunch of characters, side characters, main characters that I absolutely fell in love with. So I will definitely be continuing to pick up their stuff. I do have another one of their books on my shelves, Canto Contigo, which is actually, I believe, older than this one. I just haven't gotten around to reading it yet. But now that I've been reminded about how much I really enjoy their work, I will hopefully be picking it up in the next few months. It's definitely giving summer vibes, so hopefully I will pick it up this summer. But that is the first book of this vlog, starting strong with a 4.5-star read. Does that make Jonny Garza a all-time favorite author? And makes them an author that I'm definitely going to continue reading and whose work I will probably continue to kind of like purchase and keep on my shelves. So I guess you can definitely consider them a favorite author, but maybe not like an all-time favorite author right now. All right, moving into the next book, as you may remember, I am kind of reading them based off of what year I initially read the author. Jonny Garza I read back in 2024, and now we're jumping into Lark Taylor, who I read in 2025, and I will be jumping into The Devil's Mark. So this is a adult male romance. These books give like paranormal fantasy vibes. We have quite a mix of different creatures present in this book, at least in the book that I read that was part of the companion series. So it's set in the same world. We have, demons, angels, werewolves, sorcerers, vampires, humans. We just have a little bit of everything. And in this book, we are following Cal, who's one of Lucifer's sons. And Lucifer doesn't seem to have a good relationship with his sons. Cal doesn't really want anything to do with him. It seems that he is living in the human realm, owns a bookstore, and he's just kind of trying to live a relatively normal, stress-free life. However, his father is kind of calling him back to the underworld, and he's trying to ignore him. And on top of that, it mentions that there are bodies being found in his bookstore, so it seems like maybe someone's trying to threaten him in some sort of way. And he also ends up meeting our other character, Oscar, who has just recently gotten out of a very abusive relationship. So there are going to be some trigger warnings in here for physical abuse. It does mention that he leaves this relationship with broken bones, so it was pretty serious. And Cal at first is trying to keep his distance. He's like, I got a lot of things going on. I don't really have time to be here falling in love and everything, but it seems that the two of them are just meant to be. So I am really looking forward to getting into this book. Hopefully it's another 5-star read, just like the first book I read by this author. And hopefully I just come to love these characters. I know one of the things I really enjoyed about the last book is I felt like the love interest was so patient and respectful of his partner's boundaries and everything, and I'm hoping that we see a lot of that in this book as well. I think anytime you're following a character who's starting a relationship with someone who's leaving an abusive relationship, that there really needs to be an emphasis on that aspect of the relationship, of kind of allowing that character to really set the pace, since they're the ones healing from a traumatic event, really letting them see that it's okay for them to set boundaries and that those are going to be respected. So I know that this author can do that well, and I'm hoping to see that reflected in this story. So I will go ahead and check in with you once I am about 50 or so pages into this book to give you my initial thoughts. Talk about this book, because I am 50 pages in, literally 51 pages into this book. This book is starting off a lot different than Patience. So Patience is the other book that I've read by this author, and essentially I would consider Patience to be a slow burn, almost second chance romance. In Patience, we have soulmates who met many generations ago. However, due to certain circumstances, they have been separated, and after many years they are reuniting. However, only one of them has memories of their past lives, and the other one does not recognize his soulmate, and he also doesn't know that he's queer. So we spend a lot of time watching these two characters kind of get to know each other again, form a friendship, and then really get into a relationship. In this book, we have two characters that are hooking up on the first night that they met at the bar. Both of them are kind of going into this with the intention of it being a one-night stand with her character Cal, who is our demons. Because they are demons, they gain their power from sin. And he and his brothers, the best sin they like to feed on is lust. So he is looking to regain some power because he has been hunting these people that keep leaving dead bodies in his bookstore. At the beginning of this book, essentially, they found a clue for a location where they might be able to confront whoever is leaving these bodies. They're assuming it's another demon since this person is able to prevent them from tracking them, and also any sort of protective wards they've been putting up, this person can get through them. And so he wants to make sure that he's at full power before he confronts them. And so he went out to get some lusty power, and he meets Oscar there, and Oscar's kind of going out for the first time, and he is kind of looking to get out there again. As I mentioned, Oscar was in an abusive relationship, and we very quickly learn at the beginning of this book that about a year ago, he went to court and helped send his ex to prison. It seems that his friend walked in on his ex trying to kill him, and so they went ahead and sent him to prison. And he has been kind of just trying to put his life back together after spending so long in an abusive relationship. He works at a school. It kind of sounds like a high school in a way, but the way that it's set up, it almost seems, well, they said year 10. I'm trying to think if this might not be sent in America, because he also used the word arse instead of ass. Arse? Like, grab my arse. So I'm wondering if they're actually like in England somewhere. Anyway, so he teaches year 10. Whatever that means. I mean, in America, that's essentially high school. And he seems to have recently gotten a promotion to be kind of like a head teacher. So he's still a teacher, but he's also kind of the boss of the other teachers in his English department. So we have a bookstore owner and an English teacher. So that's definitely really cute. But like I said, he has been focusing a lot on his job, still struggling a lot though, because he pushed a lot of people away when he was in that abusive relationship. As you know, abusers often try to isolate their victims, and his ex definitely did that. So he has a very strained relationship with like his family, and he has one friend who stuck around, who was that friend that caught his ex trying to kill him, essentially. And it's that friend who was like, hey, you know what? It's summer vacation, okay? School's over for the year. Let's go out. Let's get you laid. And that's how he ended up at the club. And it was very clear from the moment that they met that there was a very strong connection. Cal is like, I'm a one-night stand kind of dude. You know, I get what I want from humans, despite the fact that he doesn't hate humans or like look down on them as much as like other demons do. He definitely doesn't think too much of them. He spent a lot of his time torturing humans in his early years as a demon. That was kind of his job, to torture the sinners. And so he really doesn't think too much of them. He kind of uses the humans for his pleasure. I mean, he is a giving lover. He mentions that. He doesn't treat them like disposable or anything, but he still never intended to have any sort of strong connection to a human. And it's clear from the moment that he saw Oscar that he was like, okay, there's something going on here. And based off of what he's saying, he's definitely acting different with Oscar when it comes to the way that he's handling their sexual interaction. And I think on a deep level, because they are obviously soulmates, this is a soulmate story, that he understands that he needs to really make sure that Oscar is on board with every step that they're taking. He knows that that's something that Oscar needs. And that was definitely something that I mentioned that I was hoping would happen in this book. And actually, at the point of where I just ended, Oscar is actually having a panic attack because, their sexual encounter was going great and everything, but Cal said something that, is something that people often say when they're having intercourse with someone, praising them in some sort of way. And clearly this made Oscar think of his ex, something that his ex said, and triggered him. And this has really kind of brought to light for Cal that Oscar was really hurt by someone in a very extreme way, and he's kind of locked in, ready to help Oscar through this panic attack, but then figure out like who he's got to kill, essentially. And Oscar also mentioned that one of the reasons he's been a little more anxious recently is that his ex is going to be getting out of prison soon. So it definitely seems like we're going to have some drama in here. Not only do we have some sort of powerful demon that is able to not be tracked or kept out of spaces by Lucifer's own sons, but we also have Oscar's ex potentially gonna try and come back into his life, probably in a rather violent manner, because I'm sure he's not going to be very happy that Oscar sent him to jail. Enjoying the story, definitely giving different vibes than Patience. I'm usually more of a slow burn kind of person, and I'm not saying that this isn't going to be a slow burn. Sometimes when it comes to soulmate stories, you don't really get a slow burn vibe because they know kind of like right away that they're meant to be together. But I'm not saying that there isn't the potential for maybe a slow burn, because I think just because someone sleeps together in the first chapter, you can always have that first sexual encounter and then kind of step back and build a relationship out of that. So I'll be interested to see how the relationship is kind of paced from here on out. I am really enjoying Taylor's writing once again. It's really smooth for me. It's really easy for me to fall into her writing style and everything. So I'm really enjoying that. And on top of that, I am interested in kind of learning a little bit more about our characters' pasts when it comes to our demon Cal and his brothers, because he has 3 other brothers. 2 of them are still in his life and one of them is no longer in his life. So there's definitely quite a history there with him and his brothers, and I know we're probably not going to learn it all in this book, and we're going to learn it over the next 4 books or so as we follow each brother. But Cal is the oldest and the most powerful, so I am looking forward to reading his and Oscar's story. I'm gonna go ahead and keep doing a little bit of reading. What time is it? 8:50, so I'll probably read at least for another half an hour or so before I get ready for bed. And I think I'm starting to adjust to the time change a little bit. Tomorrow is just another normal day. I don't think I have anything crazy going on tomorrow other than the gym and my usual work schedule. So we'll probably have plenty of time to do some more reading from this. And as usual, I'll probably go ahead and check in with you around the halfway mark. This seems to be around 350 pages. So I'll probably go ahead and check in with you around the 175 page mark or something around there. All right, so that is my initial update for this book. So far going well, but not too much has happened. Essentially, we've just met our characters and they've met each other. So, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into the story again, and I will check in with you later. All right, guys, we are a moving and a grooving. It is the following day from when I last checked in with you, and I am already 50% through Devil's Mark. There is nothing like a romance story to just get you powering through a book. I mean, they move so fast compared to other stories. They just do. I'm on page 180, and like I said, I am flying through the story. Taylor's writing and her characters just really click with my brain. I think her writing style isn't anything like spectacular or like beautiful and flowery or poetic or anything like that, but I think that she does a really good job at creating different voices for her characters, for having interesting and funny dialogue, and for creating just enough plot in the background of the primary romance that is happening to keep the story moving forward. So at this point in the book, our two characters are spending a lot more time together. Essentially, Oscar has been made aware of the fact of who Cal is at this point and is starting to learn more about that side of the world that he didn't know existed. But more importantly, he is getting closer and closer to Cal because they have this really strong, essentially like soulmate bond. The two of them just constantly want to be together. It's definitely a more fast moving relationship. Like, as far as the time span within this book, they have only known each other for a couple of weeks and they find it very difficult to be apart. Like, the two of them constantly want to be together. But that being said, we are 50% through the book and Oscar still hasn't fully committed to a full-blown like relationship with Cal. Essentially, Cal has given him his soulmate mark, but Oscar hasn't fully accepted it yet. So they're not like fully bonded. And a lot of that stems from Oscar's insecurities as someone who spent a long time in an abusive relationship and has only been out of that abusive relationship for about a year or so. He obviously still has a lot of insecurities about his worthiness as a romantic partner. He doesn't feel like he is deserving of someone such as Cal. Cal, on the other hand, has some of his own insecurities because of his past as a essentially torturer in hell, that he's not worthy of someone as sweet and amazing as Oscar. So the two of them are both kind of playing this game of trying to convince each other that they are worthy of the other's love and affection. I do continue to enjoy the way that the author is handling the abuse in this story, or I should say that the way that the author is handling a survivor's perspective of abuse, because Oscar is someone who has anxiety attacks in multiple situations throughout the story because there are things that trigger him, and it can be very mundane things, you know, just simple phrases that will trigger him, and he always feels a lot of shame and embarrassment around that. And he has a lot of people around him now who are kind of like letting him know that, hey, it's okay that you're responding this way. You went through a traumatic event and the way that you're responding to it is completely normal. And I really do enjoy the way that the author is handling this and the way that Cal and his brothers, who are now invested in Oscar's well-being, are handling that situation as well. One of the things that I really enjoyed in Patience, the other book by this author, was the kind of found family vibes that we got. And while the found family in Patience was a lot bigger than what we're seeing now, considering that book is technically set after this book, I have a feeling that throughout the series we're gonna see that found family continue to grow. Right now we kind of have Oscar, who is mostly very isolated outside of his friend Bailey, who's currently taking a very weeks-long trip over in America, so he's not really there physically, and so he's very much alone, and he's kind of coming into Cal's life, and Cal's life includes his brothers.
Hi, Chunk. You don't often get to see the Chunkamunk because he doesn't really like being held. That's you, baby.
He's very unimpressed. Oh, let's put you down. Mom already did her workout of the day. But as I was saying, what was I saying? I was talking about essentially the fact that Oscar, who has only kind of had this one person who really stuck around after he was in this abusive relationship, and this abusive relationship was causing him to push people away, is don't step all over my keyboard. You'll make the computer do something weird. He's finally kind of getting this bigger support system around him and kind of creating this safe and loving environment for him to be in, and I'm really enjoying that. So far everything has gone relatively well. There's been a few smut scenes that are well done. I do like Lark Taylor's smut scenes. I'm enjoying the way that the relationship is developing, even though it feels a little bit faster than Patience. I think that it's still at a relatively good pace, and that the characters or the author is really taking the time to kind of address Oscar's like PTSD and the other trauma that he's facing from his previous relationship, and making sure that he's in the right headspace before he fully commits to this relationship. I really am continuing to enjoy Cal as a character. He's kind of gotten to that point where he just needs to admit that he's fully obsessed with Oscar. You know, he's kind of been the guy who I kind of mentioned, he doesn't like completely devalue humans, but at the same time, they weren't worth much to him. And now he has found this human that's worth everything for him, and he's doing his best to kind of repress some of his demon urges. But the more that he tries to do that, the more Oscar kind of lets him know, like, hey, I don't want you to like hide parts of yourself. Like, these are parts that I'm completely comfortable with. So he's really finding that he's with someone he can really openly love and be himself around. And as the oldest brother, I think he has been really keeping everyone at arm's length. Like, the only people he's really been close to are his brothers, and even them he sometimes keeps at a bit of a distance, because obviously him being such a powerful demon, the oldest son of Lucifer, he knows that those he cares about can be used against him by them being kidnapped, threatened, things like that. And obviously with him now having Oscar in his life, those are things he's worried about. So we definitely have a few threats facing our characters. Obviously, Oscar's ex is due to get out of prison. I believe he's supposed to be getting out of prison around the end of summer break. They're right now on summer break from school. They are in England, by the way. I think at first I was like, are they in England? They are in England. And so there's him. Oscar hasn't yet fully opened up about what happened between him and his ex. With Cal, I think he's still really worried that once he opens up about how bad the abuse was, that Cal is going to judge him for being too weak to leave sooner. And so he's still kind of scared to open up about that. I have a feeling when that does happen, it's going to be a difficult conversation. Obviously, any of the scenes revolving around his anxiety attacks or any sort of display of his trauma from those events is always difficult to read. And then on top of all of that, obviously we still have the fact that Lucifer wants his sons to return to hell, and he is holding something over their heads, which is making it very difficult for them to say no to that. So I'll be interested to go ahead and see how they resolve that issue. But that is my 50% mark check-in. I'm assuming that I will finish this in the next couple of days if I continue at the pace that I'm going right now. Tomorrow is Friday, which is wonderful. I have recently started going to the gym on Fridays as well. Yeah. Trying to go to the gym some more. Don't know why, but I am. So I'll be going there tomorrow, and then obviously we have the weekend. I think my mom mentioned some sort of art show or something that she wants to go to, so I'll probably go with her. I mean, in our office room, we are hoping to do a gallery wall, so maybe I'll see if they have any pretty paintings or even picture frames. I don't know what kind of art show it is that I might want to grab for that. But obviously this vlog will probably still be going on during that, so I'll take you guys along with me. But other than that, I will check in with you once I have finished this book.
It comes and goes in the blink of an eye. Soon as I swear you've been left behind, all the colors come back so bright. Wish I could keep you in black and white, sorta like a picture in a drawer. I don't wanna look at anymore, but it's too hard to ignore that I'll never not feel like yours. Holding on to someone new's the only time I feel like I'm still holding on to you. It's like an instant rewind.
All right, everyone, guess who finished a book? Me. It is Sunday evening, and I honestly was starting to think that I wouldn't finish this book over the weekend, because if there's one thing I don't do over the weekends, it's read a lot. I always have all these other things to do that just take time away from reading, but that's just life when you have a Monday through Friday job. A lot of the things that you need to do, you just gotta save for the weekend, and so there's not a lot of time to relax. That's capitalism for you, baby. But I went ahead and finished this while I was at the cafe, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it a really solid 4 stars. I had a really good time with this book, not as much as Patience. Now, I will say that I kind of went into this not expecting to like it as much, primarily because oftentimes when you read an author and then you check out some of their older works, sometimes it's not as good, because like with any craft, authors improve, you know? I'm not saying that the writing in this was bad or anything, but I definitely think there were certain elements of the story that could have been tightened up a little bit. One of the big aspects of the story I felt didn't quite, I don't want to say work for me, but didn't do much for me, is the plot. Like, I felt like the plot was a little bit weak, as if the author just needed to add a little zing, a little excitement to the story. At the same time, it felt like a relatively minor part of the story, where there were a lot of times where the plot would just kind of be thrown to the wayside, despite the fact that it kind of gave urgent vibes, where I could never decide if this was really important or not, because it sometimes felt really important, felt really life or death, and other times it was like, we don't have to think about that, we don't have to worry about that. And so I think with the plot, I never quite knew exactly how I was supposed to feel about it, and it just wasn't a very consistent part of the story, so I did struggle with that a little bit. I also feel like, despite the fact that I think the way that Oscar's mental health and his PTSD with the abusive relationship was handled was done relatively well, there were times where I felt like their conversations were really giving I read a pamphlet vibes, if you know what I mean. Like, the author was like, yes, I really read some articles about how to communicate with someone who is having a mental health crisis or who was in an abusive relationship. And I'm not saying that, those articles are BS. Obviously, they are helpful, but it just felt a little clinical, a little on the nose, and lacked a little bit of like subtlety and more of a natural feel to it. So those were the two things that I think really kept the story from being more highly rated, but the rest of it, I had a good time with it. I really continued to enjoy the characters, continued to enjoy their relationship. The steamy scenes were a lot of fun, had a good time with those. The story didn't quite have as much found family as the other book I read by this author, but I have a feeling like with series like this, the found family aspect tends to increase with every book because obviously the family grows and grows and grows as we introduce more characters to it. So I am looking forward to checking out the next book. I know that the next book is going to follow Harlow, who is one of his brothers and is actually going to be following, I don't know if it's spoilery, so I'm not going to say who he ended up with, but you definitely saw like the first time that the two of them met. And it was very clear. And I knew relatively early in the book who the next couple was going to be, but I'm definitely eager to continue on in this world and everything. And I know that I'm going to read a ton of books by this author. I just know I'm going to go ahead and continue picking up her works both within this world, and once I'm finished with it, move on to some other stuff. So that being said, another successful read, though not another 5-star yet. Though I definitely wouldn't say this author is a one-hit wonder because she continues to impress me. All right, that being said, we are finally moving on to the final book of this vlog. Today's the 15th. It is the middle of the month. I have just finished my second book of the month. We're moving a little slowly here, guys. But that being said, we are going to be moving into House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. This book, I think, is going to have a very different vibe from the first two books. This one, as far as I know, doesn't really have any romance in it. I know that the Year of the Witching didn't really have romance in it, but it definitely had like a smidge of attraction between the main character and someone. So I'm not sure if there'll be romance in this, but it'll be a very minor part of the story. But that being said, we are following a woman who is in need of money, and she ends up becoming a blood maiden. Essentially, she is going to this court where I think they are literally drinking blood, and she has gained the attention of the head of this court. It seems like maybe at first things are going relatively well, that she gets on well with this mistress of hers. However, as she starts to maybe discover some things she's not supposed to know, suddenly her life is in danger. So I am excited to get into this book. I know that I really enjoy this author's writing and her female characters, so I am intrigued to see what we get from this book. It's also relatively short. I mean, it looks short. It's not even 300 pages. So this is definitely the shortest book of the vlog. So I will, as usual, check in with you probably around the 50-page mark to give you my initial thoughts. First time wearing sunglasses for the year. There's something about spring mornings where the sun, it's just right in your face. And honestly, I'm soaking up all the vitamin D that I can right now. So I did some spring cleaning today, and I have a whole laundry basket full of stuff that I am getting rid of. I went ahead and went through some of the drawers where there's stuff that I hardly ever touch, and where my leggings and shoes are, there was a bunch of stuff stuffed in there that I just have been ignoring. And look, I didn't really touch any of the stuff that's being hung up because I go through that pretty frequently, but these two areas, we got rid of a lot of stuff that has just been laying around for years and years, and a lot of socks that I don't wear anymore. So, hurrah! Feels so good. We love a good spring clean.
Winter nights got me waking up alone. Cold heart, but my head a firestone. Wearing jewels like I'm sitting on a throne. Nothing but a broke boy covered up in chrome. Nothing but a big ploy hitting on my head. Now that I am unemployed, I can't leave my bed. Hoping for some big dreams, but I know they're dead. Trying to shoot my shot, now my body full of lead. Demons in my soul while I'm losing no control, and I'm never going nowhere. Never gonna be the man you wanna see. I'm putting on the show, yeah. Feet on my side, I'm stuck here in the night. You know I'm laying low, yeah. Never gonna know how far that I could go. I'm nothing but a jungle, yeah. What's mine? What's mine? I lay awake in the night time, slowly losing my mind, waiting for the sunrise. I know I'll go, turn into a no-show. I'm nothing but a photo. You can call.
Alright guys, me and Tofu are here to do our initial update on House of Hunger. I am 55 pages through this book, so I'm here to give you my initial thoughts. And good news, I am once again easily falling into Alexis Henderson's writing and into her world. I was instantly drawn into this story, and it's just so easy to pick up her books and just go with the flow. What can I say? I think her writing just works really well for me. It's both really descriptive in a way that's easy to visualize what's going on without being overwritten, and also very beautiful, but also being very clear and still having a good flow and everything to it. And I feel like the combination of her writing and the fact that she is able to get me interested in characters so quickly is what makes it so easy to fall into her books. On page 1, essentially, we are following, I keep wanting to say Marion, but I feel like that's not her name. Marion. It is her name. Haha, I got it right. So we are following Marion, and she is essentially an orphan. I think she's about 20 years old. At least she said she was 20 years old. I'm not 100% sure if she was lying about that for a job, but we are following her, and it's just her and her brother. Their parents died a few years ago, I want to say about 10 years ago or so, and her brother is very sick, and because of his sickness he has turned to alcohol and drugs, and so she is the only one who is working, and she's working this back-breaking job as a maid for this wealthy woman who is quite cruel, and so she is very unhappy with her life. She's essentially living in the slums, and one day she's looking through the paper, her and a quote-unquote friend. She kind of talks about how no one really has friends in the slum because no one has the time or energy for friends, but she and this woman that she grew up with were looking through the weddings that were being announced in the paper, or I'm not even sure if it was weddings. It was more like people would put advertisement for a bride, like they would be like, hey, I'm looking for this kind of woman to marry, something like that. And there was advertisement for a blood maid, and a blood maid is someone who is working for one of the houses up north, and essentially they bleed for these houses because in this world it seems that there are healing properties that come with consuming blood. And this job is rather controversial. It is popular up in the north, or I don't want to say popular in the north, but it's more common in the north because that's where the houses that employ these blood maids are. However, in the south, it's definitely looked down upon. It's almost treated essentially the way you would treat like a whore. And Marion is kind of like, well, I can either bleed for these people, have all of my needs met, work for them for a few years, and then be sent away with a pension that would set me for life, or I can continue to do this back-breaking work in the slums, potentially die young, or marry someone and bleed for him on the bed, giving birth to his child. that doesn't sound like that great of an option to me. So she decides that she wants to go ahead and take this position. And so she meets up with this man who is essentially like a blood taster. He's like the sommelier of blood, and he samples her blood and he's like, you have a really unique flavor to your blood. And I think that the mistress of the House of Hunger would really appreciate it. So I would like to offer you a ticket on the night train, which is essentially this train that I guess only travels at night, but it heads from the south over the plains into the north. And he's going to go ahead and introduce her to this mistress. What's interesting about this book is because it's a lot more fantastical than I thought it would be at 50 pages, and we definitely haven't gotten enough world building. I would say I have more questions than answers. The first being, is this set in a fantastical world? Is this inspired by the real world? Like, what exactly is going on? She is located in this town known as Pran, I want to say it's called. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I want to say it's something along the lines of Pran. And I looked it up, and Google was like, well, this location is best known for being a fictional city in this book. So I don't think that this is exactly like inspired by anywhere in the real world, because like I mentioned, the night train is traveling from the south where she lives to the north, and it travels through these plains that are like constantly storming. It's almost like impossible to cross this land without this train, because the man that she's traveling with mentioned that this train is run on blood fuel from the blood of cows, and that there are a lot of like cyclones and things that are on these plains. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then we also have the fact that a lot of the people who are consuming blood in these northern houses are doing so for medical reasons. Like the woman she's going to serve has some sort of hereditary blood disease, and she needs to consume blood every single day or she would die. So there's definitely more of a magical element than just like vampires or eccentric rich people who like to do things they shouldn't be doing. There seems to be some sort of like actual magical element to this story, but I haven't gotten enough information to really be able to figure it all out. As far as the character goes, I wouldn't exactly put her as likable, but I definitely understand her, and I understand why she is the way that she is. She's definitely had her edges sharpened throughout life. She has had a very difficult life through living in poverty, losing her parents young, and living with a rather violent brother who has become more and more violent over the years due to his disease and his drug addiction and alcoholism. And life has just not handed her a lot, and I think that this is more strength than anything else, and I think that it's gonna serve her quite well in the position that she's going to, because as we know from the synopsis, things are gonna get a little bit dangerous. And I think because of the life that she has led, she's a little bit more accustomed to danger and that she'll be able to handle fear a little bit better. And I also think that she is dedicated to staying as herself. Like, she doesn't want to lose herself through this position and become just a blood maid. So I think we're going to see her display quite a bit of strength and determination throughout this book. So I think that just based off of what little I have seen of her, that she's going to be a character that I quite enjoy. And I know that Alexis Henderson can write female characters that I enjoy. So far it has been going well so far. That is good. Color me intrigued and excited to continue. Like I said, this book is super short, so I will be interested what the author does with it, especially since it does seem to have more fantasy elements than I expected. I'm wondering kind of how much of that world we're gonna explore, or if we're gonna be confined a little bit more to like just the House of Hunger. Curious for that. As far as I know, this is a standalone, but I also thought the Year of the Witching was a standalone when I went into it, so what do I know? But that being said, I'll probably check in with you around the 150 mark, and hopefully by then I'm still enjoying it.
I can't get enough. No, I can't get enough. I'm falling in love. You're all I'm thinking of. Taking my time, messing my life, swear I don't mind. Say that you'll stay holding me close, swear it's alright. Baby, I feel the rush. Everything that you touch turns to gold. I know. Baby, I'm missing you. Everything that you do makes me love you. Oh. Tell me everything. You know I'm listening. Hours pass us by. Yeah, we could talk all night. Taking my time, messing my life, swear I don't mind. Say that you'll stay holding me close, swear it's alright. Baby, I feel the rush. Everything that you touch turns to gold. I know. Baby, I'm missing you. Everything that you do makes me love you. Babe, I feel the rush. Everything you touch. Babe, I'm missing you. Everything you do. Baby, I feel the rush. Everything that you touch turns to gold. I know. Baby, I'm missing you. Everything that you do makes me love you. I'm falling to pieces in my room. Are you coming over? That's cool. I could use a little something to do. We could go outside, take a little ride if you want to. That's cool. I did what I was supposed to. There's nothing left for me to do. So now I'm walking out my head through open windows. Cause that's what I feel like. Do it tonight. Waking up my brain. Maybe you can do the same thing. You want me to say something? I come up with nothing. Maybe we can talk until we figure out a topic. Been so long in my head, caught up in my feelings. I've been waiting for something new to happen. And when it happens, I'll be dancing on the
Alright
lawn.
guys, I am here for my 50% mark check-in. I am 140 pages into this book and have just arrived at chapter 16. Now, my feelings for this book, not bad. Not bad. I'm continuing to enjoy it, continuing to enjoy the writing, but I feel like compared to the emotions and the investment that I felt for the Year of the Witching, and even like the vibes, the creepiness, the darkness, the gothicness, all of this feels a little bit watered down in comparison. It's just not hitting as hard as the Year of the Witching, and it's feeling a little bit on the bland side. At this point, our character has arrived at the House of Hunger. She has been accepted as a blood maid there, and the Countess has tasted her blood and agreed that it's a very unique flavor and that she's eager to have her as one of her blood maids. We have been learning a little bit about like what it means to be a blood maid in this house. There are 5 different blood maids, and there's certain tutoring that they go through, and essentially our character needs to learn all of the different rules that she would be expected to follow, and obviously she also needs to learn how to interact with higher class people because she grew up in the slums. However, for her the process has been kind of sped up, I guess you could say, because the Countess is so interested in her blood that she is kind of being brought out into the spotlight a little sooner than expected. And there was this scene which I felt like should have been very high intensity, that like should have had me at the edge of my seat, that I should have been kind of scared for her character, but I just didn't really feel anything, and that's kind of how I've been feeling for the last few chapters. It's just been kind of going through the motions of the story, which is a bit of a bummer because I feel like it started out relatively strong, like the way that she was talking about the slums, the way that she was talking about her employer and her life there and her relationship with her brother. All of that I felt made me feel something. But as soon as she got to this House of Hunger, I feel like that has just kind of gone away, and I feel like I'm still intrigued to see where this book is going, especially since we're halfway through the book and it's a relatively short book, and our character for the first time has kind of just had a little bit of one-on-one time with the Countess. Part of me is a little worried that this isn't gonna be fleshed out enough, that I'm gonna leave this book being like, this needed to be longer, that we needed to have more time for character development and relationship building. But who knows, maybe the whole second half of this book will be about relationship building. But considering that this is supposed to go into a direction where we're kind of like, ooh, we're learning things we're not supposed to know and we're in trouble because of that, I feel like obviously we're not gonna be just focusing on character relationships. There's going to be, at least based off the synopsis, a pretty prominent plot. And I just feel like, do we have enough time to do all of that well? Maybe not. And I mean, part of me gets that maybe now that we've been introduced to the house, we've been introduced to the side characters that live there, that maybe things will speed up a little. Maybe these last few chapters were just a little bit slower because we needed to stop and get accustomed to our new environment, and now things are going to start ripping and rolling a little bit here. So I don't know. My enjoyment is not as high as it was when I first checked in with you guys. My enjoyment is definitely not as high as it was when I was reading The Year of the Witching by this author, which is a bit of a bummer. I'm not hating it. I feel like it is an interesting story, an interesting concept. I'm continuing to enjoy the author's writings. So I'm going to keep chugging along. I don't have too much more to say at this point. I will go ahead and check in with you once I go ahead and finish this book. Hopefully the second half of the story goes better for me. I'm going to stay optimistic. I'm also trying to keep in mind that right now, I don't want to say I'm in a reading slump, but I haven't been like focused on reading a lot recently. I've been a little bit distracted by other things. Like this weekend, my sister was visiting. We're continuing to do remodeling in the office room. Like this weekend, I went ahead and finally ordered a new light fixture because the one that I initially wanted has been on back order for weeks, and I finally threw my hands up and said, okay, I'm gonna find another one. So there have been other things, of course, work and gym, and I have like multiple doctor's appointments that I'm going to where I need to see the doctor on like multiple occasions. You know, we're focusing on fixing different problems, fixing poor little me. So life has just been a little bit busy and everything, but this next week I really want to lock in with this book. It's Sunday evening and I want this vlog to come out on Friday. The fact that I've been focusing on this vlog for like the entire month and I'm only reading 3 books in it is a little bit ridiculous, but I think it also shows just how much I'm not able to prioritize reading right now. And that's okay. Sometimes that happens, life gets in the way, but I am gonna go ahead and try and lock in. I will go ahead and check in with you hopefully in a couple days or so and wrap up this vlog. So real quick, while I'm logging in from my lunch break, I have only read another 20 pages since I last checked in with you, but honestly, the character right now is kind of pissing me off. Like to the point where I'm almost like, do I want to DNF this book? I'm not going to DNF it right now or anything like that, but she and the Countess have had like 2 interactions. So tell me why she's seeing the Countess like interact with some of the other blood maids that are there who have been there a lot longer than her, and she's all like, why is she only hanging out with them? Why is she having these encounters with them? I thought that she would only share that information with me. I thought that was maybe something that only I knew. And I was like, you've met her like 2 times? Like, what are you talking about? Like 2-3 times that they have interacted with each other. And now she's acting like they have some sort of like special connection and that she is like just different than all the other blood maids that are currently there or have ever come before her. And I'm just like, girl, calm down. Calm down. Like, why are you acting like this? Like, it's honestly pissing me off a little bit. Like, you're acting like you're not like other girls. You're acting like you're superior to them in some sort of way. It's kind of weird because it's like she wants to be better than them, but at the same time she's all like, I don't know why blood maid number 1, why she's threatened by me. Like, I'm the 5th blood maid. Like, I'm like literally no threat to her whatsoever. But then she turns around and goes like, oh, but I thought the Countess was treating me different than the other ones, that there was something special going on between us. And it's anyway, we'll see. Hopefully it gets better, because right now I'm not having a good time, which is such a bummer. It's such a bummer, but it's just how the cookie has decided to crumble with this book. So hopefully I'm gonna go ahead and continue with it. Hopefully I don't DNF it because I really don't want to DNF it. Going from giving an author 5 stars 2 months ago to DNFing one of their books is a little bit of whiplash, but I just wanted to let you know that my enjoyment in the second half, I know I was saying like hopefully it improves. Right now it's getting worse instead of better, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, slight unexpected turn of events, but I have in fact decided to DNF House of Hunger. What? The fact that just a couple months ago I was giving this author 5 stars and here I am DNFing her work is a little bit crazy, but I think I read like 10 pages from when I told you I'm not gonna DNF it yet or anything, but it just is starting to feel very cheesy, immature, and very predictable. I feel like what was interesting was after I read The Year of the Witching, I gave the book to my mom to read, and she was like, oh, it just felt a little young for me. And I was like, oh, really? I was kind of surprised. Reading this book, I feel that. I feel like the story is young adult. I actually have no idea if this is supposed to be young adult or adult. I never checked which age group this was supposed to go in. I went into it with the expectation that it was adult because our character is 20. So usually that would be an adult story, and it has some aspects to it where I'm like, I think it's supposed to be adult, but I'm not 100% sure. That being said, I felt like I was reading almost some of the plot points that I would read in like a romance novel in the early 2000s. It just felt very unoriginal, and it was really frustrating me, our character. I mentioned from the very start that she wasn't like the most likable of characters, but that's okay. We all read unlikable characters. Yet I felt my respect for her like lowering and lowering and lowering by the chapter. And that's where I kind of draw the line, where I can't respect the character and the decisions she's making. And that's where I had gotten to at this story. And I also felt like the Countess was starting to be presented as very like wimpy, which felt weird because I feel like she's supposed to be this very powerful figure who's the head of a very powerful house, who despite her illness has been able to hold on to power. And yet every interaction I had with her, she was kind of like a bit of a limp noodle, some limp lettuce, I guess you could say. And so I was just very unimpressed with the story. And I did end up kind of skimming the last chapter, and I was like, yeah, that takes a pretty predictable route. We all could have guessed that that is where this story was going. So I'm not particularly upset that I'm DNFing. Well, I am upset that I'm DNFing this. But, you know, I'm not upset that I DNF'd it in the sense that I feel like I'm missing out by not reading the last 100 pages of this book. And I kind of wonder if the fact that this is the author I most recently read, because, you know, we had the author that I read for the first time way back in 2024 and then one back in 2025. And this was the author that I had read just in January, a couple months ago. And I feel like maybe her work is really fresh in her mind. So I could really tell the decrease in quality in this book, where it just became so apparent that this author is capable of great things and they're just not happening in this book, which is a huge bummer. So this is unfortunately a DNF. Every time I had to pick up this book, I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. And I kept telling myself, like, it's a short book. But I feel like even if it's a short book, it doesn't mean you should just keep going. So I am DNFing this book on page 173 officially, and that means we are ending this vlog on a bummer. This was supposed to be like a reading authors that I've given 5 stars from. Will I get another 5-star from them? Are they going to become all-time favorite authors? All right, sorry, my phone ran out of storage, as it tends to do. It has so many videos from this super long vlog on it, so I definitely need to clear it out. But that being said, what was I saying before I got cut off? I can't remember, but that does bring an end to this vlog. So just to recap, we started by reading a book by Jonny Garza, and this was the author that I had read way back in 2024, and I gave this book a 4.5 stars. While it was a little bit of a rocky beginning, the story and the characters really won me over in the end. Then we went ahead and checked out an author that I had read last year in 2025, and that is Lark Taylor, and I read Devil's Mark. While I didn't like this couple as much as I did from the first book I read by her, I still had a really great time with it and gave it a solid 4 stars. And then we have the greatest disappointment of all. My enjoyment was going down with every book, which was a little unexpected because, you know, if I had read a book by an author 2 years ago and I read a book by them now and I didn't like it, I'd just say my taste has changed. But the fact that it was the author that I read just a few months ago that I didn't enjoy, I don't think I can chalk it up to me having a dramatic change in reading habits in the last couple of months or anything like that. So DNF. And then a couple enjoyments. These 2 authors, I will definitely be continuing to purchase their work and putting them on my shelves. As far as Alexis Henderson, I'm not giving up on her because I have given her a 5 stars, and the DNF doesn't like null that 5 stars or anything, but I will probably be getting her books from the library in the future and then purchasing them retroactively if I love the story. So that is kind of what happened in this vlog, and I will probably be doing vlogs like this in the future because I do always want to make sure that I am prioritizing authors that I have really enjoyed, and I think that this type of video will help me do that. I would love to know if you have read any of these authors and what you have thought of their work. And of course, feel free to shout out some of your favorite authors in the comments down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!